Hello and warm welcome to this episode of IP Cast, a podcast on IP-related matters by Starks, a niche law firm specializing in intellectual property law and international trade law. My name is Maria Boitsova-Venans, and I'll be your host today. In this episode, I would like to talk about IP audit. According to the legal definition, intellectual property audit is a comprehensive review of a company's IP assets, related agreements, relevant policies, and compliance. Some of you might be wondering, what is there to audit? We have one trademark, we know about it. That whole IP audit thing is not for us. However, did you know that almost 1/3 of EU companies surveyed have no provision in their standard employment contract as to the ownership of IP? And yes, IP questions are relevant for many contractual relations, also for employment. Besides, the IP one has can be a dormant value, ready to be explored. Did you know, for example, that since 1993, IBM has been making approximately $1 billion per year from licensing its non-core technologies? In plain language, they have identified what they own but do not need, and then licensed it off to create an additional revenue stream. This is just one potential outcome of an IP audit. Another one could be at least reducing costs of unused IP assets. Yet certainly, IP audit can help you discovering unclaimed business opportunities or exploring potential business expansion or even tax deductions. Benefits are numerous. By the way, it happens quite often that the IP rights owner is not the right one, and that's a huge risk. Some IP rights might need to be transferred, be it from an employee or subcontractor, or from the company's retired co-founder, or perhaps from the previous business entity which changed its name and or location. Recently, we have also had several cases in connection with trademarks when the initial list of goods and services for which the trademark was registered no longer reflected the business needs of our clients. One, of course, cannot expand the list of goods and services. However, in many cases, it makes sense to at least file for another trademark, which would then be better in line with the current and future business needs. Business evolves. IP should evolve too. While an IP audit could mean a lot of different things, generally speaking, there are three types of an audit. First one is the general purpose IP audit, which is self-explanatory. The second one is the event-driven IP audit. For example, in the context of M&A or joint venture, or before engaging in IP licensing, or before launching a new product where an FTO, freedom to operate, could prevent quite some potential troubles. And finally, the third one is the limited purpose or focused IP audit. For instance, when preparing for litigation or for foreign expansion or foreign filings. Whatever the type, classical IP audit focuses primarily on two business concerns. The first one is, does the company own all of the IP it needs? And the second one is, does the company infringe on the IP of others while conducting its business? The second one, namely the infringement question, goes both ways, as it is important likewise to monitor that one's own rights are not infringed and act accordingly. In any case, an IP audit allows a company to get a clear view of which IP assets the company owns, which one it effectively uses, who and where owns these IP assets, and whether there is a real or potential infringement of either the company's IP assets or the IP assets of others. However, most importantly, an IP audit allows to answer the question, which actions related to IP assets are required to best serve the relevant business goals of your company. The main takeaway of today is IP is an asset, and an asset needs to be put to use for the benefit of its owner. Yet it all starts with taking a step back and performing a proper IP audit. Do you want to make sure that, from the IP perspective, your company is in the best possible position? Then drop us a line at info@starks.be. Thank you very much for listening and for all your likes and for all your shares. If you have any question you would like us to address in one of the future episodes, or if you have any questions about this episode, please do send us an email at info@starks.be. In the meantime, thanks again and see you next time at IP Cast, a podcast on IP-related matters by Starks. Starks, your sustainable growth supporter.